There's nothing quite like the reality of returning to work, especially after maternity leave, where you've had a little bit of time to get to know your new baby and spend some time with your family. And then it's a very daunting approach going back to work. Now let's just imagine you're going back to work, but into a new position, or you're applying for a new position, or you're trying to figure out how to make it work. Maybe you've been a carer for a number of years. Our next guest, Jenny Rogers, has made this what she does now, having experienced it firsthand. So yeah, let's learn a little bit more about how this works.
So you're involved with bringing women back to work as a program. But before we get into that, tell me a bit about how you found out about it or got interested in it, or even your career path that drew you towards that.
Okay, so I guess the first thing I always like to start talking about is the day it all changed, I call it. The day I became a mum. And, I think looking back on it now, something happens to you when you become a mum, something very atomic splits in you. I mean, you're the same person, but your identity definitely splits in two. There's one person, one part of your identity is completely and utterly surrendered to this new role, insofar as that you have this massive responsibility put on you. And, it's kind of seismic in that sense in your life. It's the biggest thing that's ever happened to you. And a lot of it is, so sudden that you just don't have any time to kind of understand what's happening. It's like a kind of a crisis management situation where you're just firefighting, trying to, keep this baby alive, really, and keep yourself alive.
It's terrifying.
And keep yourself sane. And it's so big. It's just so big. So that's when it all kind of started. So up until that moment in my life, let's say, that was the moment definitely where everything changed. Before that, I was working full time. I liked to work at least 50, 60 hours a week. I loved work. I ran a production company for theatre. I was lecturing at the university, and I had a small kind of a drama school where I did workshops of facilitation for basically anyone who wanted to improve their speech, drama, or communications. And I was just high on work. I really loved work. I woke up every morning thinking, I was a real hustler, and I enjoyed it immensely. I just liked working. And then when my first son was born, I didn't know what to do anymore, because I couldn't go around the house with the laptop and the phone anymore because I had a baby in my arms. And then because I was kind of more self-employed, I couldn't really rely on anyone to sort of take on the work. So I was left in this really anxious position for the first time in my life. Things that I had previously loved to do suddenly became a source of anxiety, and I didn't know where I wanted to be. Did I want to be at home? Did I want to be at work? And I just felt so divided in two. And what happened then was my husband got offered a job in Belgium. And I just kind of said, if we do this, I don't have to work. I had this idea of this thing everybody was saying, it's a privilege to look after your children. It's a privilege to stay at home. And I was like, maybe I can go and get that privilege and stuff. But it's not a privilege either. And I'll talk about that. We have all these kind of things that we say it is or it isn't. And it's actually kind of not any of them. It's just a big grey area of trying to figure it out. Yeah. So we went off to Belgium anyway, and we stayed there for a year and a half, and then we were coming back and forth to Ireland, and all of that was happening. And then we got a call to take a look at a job in Switzerland, and 10 days later we'd moved countries. And that was kind of a traumatizing thing as well, with a small baby. And we were only supposed to go for a year, and now we're there 7 years later. So that's kind of my background. And in that time, I don't know how to explain it. Like, when you come away to a different country and you're yourself, you can go out and you can have a few drinks and you can meet people and stuff. But when you come away and you have a young family, like, 2 little boys, whatever, you really are relying on the whole kind of mum, meeting up with the other mums. And because I wasn't fluent in German, I was totally reliant on meeting other international mums. And where we were, it wasn't very well, like, let's say, multicultural. It was just kind of a lot of Swiss people. So I found that really, really hard, because even learning the German, everybody spoke Swiss German. So, I mean, if you're doing podcasts on how to integrate, you can tag me up for that one as well, because it's definitely, it's very hard. And I think, that erodes your confidence. over time. You become very
Of course,
insular in
yeah.
yourself. And actually, when COVID came along and everyone was going on about being stuck at home and not having people to talk about, I was like, hello.
You're the master of it, like,
Yeah. Welcome to my reality. So, yeah, and then I tried loads of different projects. I tried to set up a business, and I tried a partnership with another lady, and everything just seemed to be failing, and I couldn't get a grip. I just couldn't get you just need a bit of luck or something. I couldn't really get that. I couldn't find any luck. I was like, this is ridiculous. I always had good luck. I was always great at putting myself in the line of opportunity. And suddenly I was just having no luck. I was having, what am I going to do? And I was really trying to pursue avenues, and I was, looking for jobs and half looking for other things and thinking about going back to college. And I was just completely all over the place. It was just really hard. And I didn't have that many friends or colleagues or people to kind of rely on. I was kind of very isolated, actually. And I started to get very depressed about it. And, it was starting to impact my sleep then. And I couldn't figure it out because I was like, well, hold on now, you're after deciding to stay at home with your kids. So what is it? Get over yourself, get up and do the bloody housework, and, go do a bit of shopping. But there was something.
Funny, it was that easy.
Yeah, but something was missing. And I had some friends, but it was always talking about your kids and how they're doing at school and how you're doing whatever. But I was kind of like, and the big thing was I'd stopped reading books. I used to, big book reader, and I used to have book clubs I was on and online or whatever, and I just kind of started to shut down a little bit, and even writing, I always was writing all up through my life, and that stopped. So it's like kind of getting a bit like, what's wrong with me? Why aren't I able to navigate this? I'm intelligent, I'm educated, I'm emotionally stable most of the time. Why am I not able to navigate this extremely normal thing of going out and getting something to do that's not your kids? How do you do that? And so I saw this thing on LinkedIn about Salesforce had a program they were running called Bring Women Back to Work, and where they train you to work on Salesforce tech. And I just kind of said, well, why not? I've never worked in tech. I've never done IT, but all the stuff I'm qualified to do, I can't seem to get a job in it. Maybe it's time to upskill, retrain, look at something else. Like, let's just do it. Why not? When you get to a point in your life where you're like, okay, this is actually the only thing that really looks like it's going to give me a chance.
Yeah.
Maybe this is the chance, kind of thing. And even though it's completely not like what you think your chance is, it's kind of like it comes in a different disguise or whatever. And that's kind of how I ended up on the Bring Women Back to Work program 18 months ago, before I took over the workshop lead role. So that's what brought me up to that moment. So a lot of confusion, a lot of indecisiveness, and a lot of trying, and then to the point where I just saw this thing. And it really was a bit of a light at the end of the tunnel. Like, at that time, I actually this was the straw that gave me a grip. It was great.
I wish I could say that everything that you've mentioned there and all the challenges were something that I'd never heard a women mention before. But I think it's kind of sad that in all 2025 that it's still such a big problem for people. And it's, it's not, I don't think it's exclusive to any country. And it's almost disappointing to hear that, because we always think of like the likes of Switzerland or the Nordic countries being further ahead with that than most. But yeah, I think we call it returnship, and we give them all these lovely names, but really they're a big challenge. And I think there's this balance between the women or the parents that want to get back into work or want to have something else outside of being a parent, and the industry's understanding of the benefits of that. It's almost being treated like they're somehow expected to do a favor, but they're forgetting that these people have a world of experience, and I don't think it matters what your experience is in beforehand. Experience is life experience, and life experience is a win no matter who you're bringing into career. Like you mentioned that your background in theatre. I have a background in theatre. I ended up in cybersecurity. Probably and I studied psychology. Those two things alone were the single most useful things with regards excelling a career in cybersecurity. Now, that's not on job descriptions anywhere, and people don't put those pieces together, but I would see it in other people now. And when I see returners or CCBs of people that are coming back or coming from completely different career backgrounds, I see massive, massive value in it. And I think that there's still a challenge around that mentality for companies needing to change like that. So when you, in your role then, what's involved in your role working with them? Do you run workshops? Do you get involved in things like this, speaking about it as well? Or what's involved in the workshop actually? Give me a day-to-day.
Okay, so I'll tell you about the program. So the program was founded in 2020 during the pandemic by Vanessa Gentile, and she's the founder of Bring Women Back to Work. And her goal was to design a program that would reskill or upskill returners to work in the tech sector. So primarily at the time it was Salesforce, as I said, is the learning platform. We use the Trailhead Academy, which is a Salesforce product learning tool. And mostly it's recruiting into the tech sector. So she stepped forward and she spoke with hiring partner companies. So there's a handful of original hiring partners that are still with us, but they've expanded since. So the first kind of, let's say, generation of hiring partners would have been tech centric, but now we have expanded that out to different sectors as well. So that's the kind of the deal, is that you have the hiring partner and you have the woman who wants to, or the participant who wants to return to work. In that, then you have, I suppose, the program itself recruits participants, and then the recruiting process takes over 3 months, where women are introduced to the program. They usually find it through LinkedIn or through Facebook or through Instagram, and they make an application on the website, and then that's assessed. There's a few criteria. The criteria are mostly like just being able to have a certain level of English that you can follow along with the course, and also that you have the native language of the country you live in. So we're in the German-speaking countries, so the DACH region, which would be Austria, Germany, Switzerland, and then we're also in Central European countries. So we're in Poland, and then we're in Central Eastern Europe as well. So Hungary and Czech Republic. So we're kind of that side of in Europe, very central. And also with expansion talks into other countries at the moment, but I don't know much about that. That's not my side of things. So that's kind of where we are. And then you have the program. So the program is a 12-month program, and it's really nicely put together. It's learn, shine, grow is the kind of, it's like a circle, like a,
yeah.
You have your first kind of, you come into the program, you do your you sort of do your tech certifications. And then once you get your kind of certifications out of the way, you're into soft skills. So you're into mentoring, coaching, developing personal branding, peer-to-peer coaching. There's an awful lot in it. Then we have our kind of hard skills, sort of like we do hard skills with in project management, in consultation, and sales. So they're the three big areas of hard skills we do. And we also do obviously now with the AI specialist certification through Salesforce, we offer that. So we have enough of a mix for people to come in and start to really figure out what they want to do next. Within obviously there's a parameter around that. We can't facilitate every kind of career comeback, but there's enough there to get you started.
Yes.
So a lot of the participants come in through the program and they participate in it, and they might go in and go on and become like software developers, or they might go on into internal communications. And my job essentially is I take the participants on that journey. I bring them through the workshops. I deal with all of their questions, so mainly to do with Slack. But yeah, I get them up on their platforms. I try my best to give them as much technical support as I'm capable of, which is a lot more than before. And I listen to their concerns, I get their feedback, and generally I just try and make sure that they know where they're going in the program. So as much as possible, I'm communicating with them, answering questions, and I attend all the workshops. So the workshops then they're given by content partners. So we have people who come from different sectors to deliver content to the program. And all of this is pro bono. So everybody who's involved in the program is doing it pro bono. It's completely a community of supportive women. The women don't pay anything to do the program, and it's just basically the whole thing is financed through the hiring partners, they pay a fee every year, and they
Yeah.
can recruit from the database once they pay the fee.
So access to
it's
the
very
database.
inexpensive way actually to get
Yeah.
high quality, good value candidates.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then the workshops themselves, they're usually about an hour long or 2 hours. Some of them go to 3 hours, but very few. I think from my own personal experience doing the program as well, the workshops were incredible. Just to have that time to, like I told you about, being kind of completely lost and in a fog and all those things. They were really good for helping me to see a pathway through. And also I think for a lot of women, it actually can be the first time in a long time that they've had a conversation with another person about their career and, what they want and what they value and how they want to progress. It's hard to find that space. So the workshops give you opportunities to articulate and to share your voice and become more aware of yourself,
Yeah.
And I think it's through that kind of articulation and building a new self-awareness that you realize, actually, I'm not going back. There is no going back. We say bring women back to work, but the woman's changed, so who you're bringing back isn't the same person that was. You're just, totally different. So actually getting that time to kind of articulate who you've become from that experience is a huge part of it. And that's the value. That's the value that we're offering to the participants, and it's also the value we're offering to the hiring partners, is that understanding that transition is happened. It's not something that you can decide happens or not. It just has happened. It's just part of life. My biggest bee in my bonnet is this word gap. Like when people hear people talking about a gap in their career, you're like, there's no gap. You're still the same person. You don't have a chunk taken out of you.
Bloody hard as well, like during that gap as well. It's not like it was a holiday. Like you were
No,
working
not at all.
hard.
Completely. Like this idea that it's a gap is just ridiculous. Like that you have this gap in you or something. That's the bit that really annoys me. And, I think it's really interesting, like that there was a campaign last year. I don't know if we saw it, or during the year, about in Germany where they talked about unpaid care work. And I get the point. Like, it's true, you're at home, you're caring, but you're not just a carer either. It's not the right category to put you into.
You're so many things. I can't.
It's much more than that. You're a mentor, you're a leader, you're an understander of generations, you're a data gatherer. There's a million things that you scale up on when you take that time in a domestic setting. Let's say, I don't know, if you haven't been in your own country, it doesn't really feel like home either. But within a domestic setting, that you do have huge time to reflect on say the world and how things could be, and all of that information, all of that energy that you have kind of doesn't have anywhere to go. And I think that's why it's hard, because it's not just about getting a job and getting a payment or getting a wage. It's about getting on and contributing to the world. It's about making a contribution. And I think that's the hard bit, is that there's no opportunity to do that without going. There's huge opportunities to do it in the voluntary sector, but it's very hard to do that. As a parent to participate in the discussions and deal with all of the other things that come with the job, so of being a parent. So I think for me, it's kind of like looking at how can we support parents or mums especially, to be more kind of, to listen to them, but not just listen to them to see what they need, but also to see what their voice is about, and what the kind of the intelligence of that voice. Because it is. Sometimes I get into conversations with other participants and I'm listening and I'm like, this is crazy. The way this person's thinking is just so innovative and future driven and brilliant, and they're feeling like, oh, I just did this job. But we're missing all of this other great resource, this innovative thinking, And I think that's something that I certainly got from the program myself. I ended up going very into innovation and what innovation is, because, I have a creative background, and how creativity works in innovation. I got very interested in that during the program, and that kind of became my sort of pathway through it. And just realizing that, it is basically all these, great minds don't think alike. It is all these differences of opinion, these conflicting opinions that definitely drive innovation. it's not a load of, a certain demographic of people sitting around the table and agreeing to things.
No, you need that diversity of thought as much as anything else. And the more different backgrounds, the more you're going to have that.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes perfect sense to those of us that are part of that diversity mix as such, that are not, like you say, the typical demographic. But I sometimes feel like I'm banging my head on a door going like, how can they not see it? It seems so obvious to me. Out of both being the practitioner side and the participant side, what were your favorite parts on each
as
role?
As a participant and as a content lead?
Yeah.
What did I like the most? I guess we do a lot of, I like all that we do. We've only started, I didn't have it as a participant because we only partnered with them when I came on as content lead. We work with LinkedIn quite closely now. They do workshops with us. And I have found personally the networking side of understanding what networking is and how to network and what it means to network. That's become possibly, I think, what I'm interested in mostly out of the program. I mean, on the kind of the technical side, the innovation and that sort of excited me. But for me as a person, learning how to network again was, as a new person, fresh to this kind of, it kind of wasn't sort of like hanging around lobbies, drinking wine and talking about the latest show you went to see. It was different. Yeah. But I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed understanding myself, in that sector. And I think networking is the bit that is most important. I mean, no matter what program you go on, and no matter how many skills that how many certifications you get, actually being able to walk up to somebody, have a conversation with them and get a connection with them is so important getting back into work. That's how people are getting the jobs. You have people who do a lot of certifications as well, and they're not heavy on the networking and they do get snapped up very quickly. But then other people's approach is very much about doubling down on what they want and really getting targeted about who they want to work with. And that's a really good tactic. Seeing people move in that direction has been good for me. And so I like that side of it, and I really like the personal branding side of it, about being yourself and not feeling like you have to be perfect, always about kind of just trying to, and I'm always trying to advocate for that, for people just to be themselves. And, anyway, I mean, that's important to me as a parent, to pass on to my kids, as well as, not to be caught up in yourself too much and just to try things. So personal branding, like your personality, who you are and how you come across online, or how you communicate your thoughts and ideas, all that kind of thing has been very interesting. And this year now we offer a lot more of that kind of communication skills on the program as well. So I'm excited to see where they go. I hope that they keep building into that now over the next couple of years.
Good. Did you have somebody during your career or life that, let's say, a mentor or coach or someone that made a significant impact on you and maybe influenced the way that you support other people today?
I've had first of all, I've really good friends. I've been really lucky with the friends I've had in my life. I've had hundreds of mentors over the years. Really good mentors. I've always had good teachers and mentors. I've been very lucky. Maybe not so much in school, but like in my professional career, I had trying to think of one person in particular. It's hard to say. There's just been a lot of people who've been in my life that have been good. I couldn't actually say there's one in particular. There's been a lot.
See, I always ramble on about the importance of having a mentor to people, and especially people that are entering a new industry or entering the tech industry in particular. So I guess, what would your thoughts be around that? Like, how would you help somebody to understand how important it is to have a mentor?
I think mentorship is critical. Mentorship and networking, they kind of go together in my brain a little bit together as well, because I think in mentoring, you need to have different mentors for different parts of your life as you're growing. I think you should always have a mentor or a few mentors. I think my dad was telling me they used to call them think tanks when they were, like you had your boys, kind of with different skills that you could help own your personality. So I think for me, it's definitely like that you have your peer mentors, people who are in the same place as you, that's very important, I think you should always be doing something, even if it's just a pottery class or a kind of a hobby, a wine tasting class, whatever it is. But somebody to just talk to about a learning experience, whatever it is, because you'll always bring that back into your own life and reflect on it. It'll always add. I think you need to have somebody definitely in your professional sphere. Maybe you need somebody who's like, for the moment, I have mentors more in kind of like storytelling and more kind of pushing my communication skills. And before I would have had more kind of like how to get a job. And so they change over time, but you do need them. And then I think you need to mentor people as you go as well. So as the more you're learning and growing, that you need to have people that you're mentoring. And I guess I'm in that role now where I'm mentoring a lot more myself, and it's a huge privilege that people do listen to you. And sometimes I'm kind of going, am I making any sense here? But then people email you and say, that was really helpful. And you're like, wow, okay, well, maybe I do understand this. And I don't think you have to be an expert. I think you just have to be willing to try and see a situation from somebody else's point of view and see if you can help them take the next step in some direction anyway. So yeah, I think it's critical to mentorship is really, really important. And I think also like conversation, we don't talk about that anymore. Like the art of conversation is hugely important, I think, because, you know, in this day and age where we're constantly dealing in bites and snippets and samples and all these little tiny bits of information, actually sitting down having a conversation with somebody is massively important. And I think that's why podcasts are so popular, where radio is becoming, I have the radio on all the time, is because the idea of a conversation going on all the time is lovely. You know, it's a really nice thing. Yeah. And I think, you know, mentoring is hugely about having conversations with people and about pushing yourself to have conversations with people. And, you know, you can, as I said, like when you're at home and you're with the kids, you can have a lot of conversations about kids, you know, as many as you want, in fact. But actually to try and have a conversation about something that's important, for example, like what's happening in the world. I'm talking about really what's happening in the world. Like, you know, like for example, at the moment, I'm surprised at how many like data updates I have to make on my phone. And I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting thing, isn't it? That all this election is going on and suddenly we all have to update our terms of service so we can access our platforms. And, you know, all these, is it a conspiracy theory or is it just, you know, like having those kind of, you know, not kid conversations, like about things. I think it's really important, and, you know, it helps us to kind of get a better impression of who we are and the way the world is going around us. So yeah, it's something that I think mentorship is great. I think conversation, building up your conversations with people, having conversations with people, not just small talk and, oh, by the way, can you get me a job, but actually getting to know people. And then I think the other thing that's really, really important is you need to approach people who you can ask to sponsor you. So people who will get you into companies or get you into a sector. And I think that's where the networking and the mentoring builds into that trust, that you can go to somebody, well, look, you know, I've known you now for 2 years. You know what I've got. Okay, I've known you now for 3 months. Make it a bit more possible, but you know what I can do. You know what I have. Would you give me a push in the door? Would you say a word for me? Would you pass my CV and will you get me a job? And getting to that point where you can actually say to people, I really want to do this. I want to do that role. I think that's what real returnship is that you're actually kind of picking out, okay, I've trained up, I've done my qualifications, I'm well educated, I've taken that time to nurture my family. This is what I want now, you know. The whole thing is in conflict to that, though. The problem is that if you look at the jobs market, 99% of the jobs aren't suitable because they're full-time. A lot more of them now are on site. The trend is shifting back to in person. You know, you have to turn up somewhere. The opportunities for, I think, a lot of women who are returning are to go back into the office. That seems to be a trend that's happening, and it doesn't work because the flexibility isn't there. And a lot of, women returning to work, they don't have the same, let's say, career. It's a different career aspiration. It's not like they want to climb the ladder fast. It's more like they want to have a career legacy. They want to go into a department and build something, and it has meaning, and it has their stamp on it, that there's a kind of a sort of a longer, more kind of sustainable job that they can do over time. So they're not in the mix. They're more kind of leading a new chapter for a company or something. And I've seen that a lot of returners do very well in that sector, or startups, returners go into startup and they can take on a much more kind of mentoring role there as well, because they might have had a background in management or a background in leadership, and they come in and they can really help young companies to, be stable, to stabilize and grow. The opportunities seem to be either that you can literally fit the model, which some people can, where they reskill, go in 100%, maybe with flexibility. And a lot of the companies are giving 100% flexibility, and not a lot. Well, it's happening in some cases.
Yeah. There's definitely a divide now between those who are for it and those who are against, because those who are bringing everybody back to the office, like the Amazons of the world that are bringing them back in 5 days a week, are being countered heavily by ones who maybe didn't speak about it so loudly before, but now they're all coming out the woodwork going, we're people first, we're remote first. And it's good to see that, because you need that. There's always the assumption, because Amazon is big and it shouts the loudest, that everybody's going to do that now because they started it. So it's good to see all the other companies come out and go, no, we don't believe it needs to change, because it's unsettling for... I work remotely because I'm 2 hours from Dublin, which is where, and 2.5 from Cork, which is where most of those offices are. And, I still go in from time to time to see people and say hi, because there's a social outlet there. But I don't necessarily do better or worse work in the office. Do you know what I mean? It's not consistently different either. I should probably get less done because there's people in the office that I need to talk to. But I definitely have the flexibility that I need if I'm at home. I can do the school run. I can walk the dog. I can hop onto a late call with East Coast in the evening and not feel bad about it, or not miss kids' bedtimes, because then I have a 2-hour commute home. And that to me, like, it breeds loyalty. I've seen it in people in my team too, that they are much more likely to be all hands on deck when you need them to, when they have that little bit of flex and breathing room that they need. I don't care, as long as the work gets done. It never bothered me, and I think it's that simple. But it's good to see more companies coming out and saying that they may not even have jobs right now for people, but the fact that they're saying that they are still supporting remote work is helping to sort of calm the fear of people, which is what we need right now, I think.
I mean, it's for me, I definitely think it's double-edged sword. Like, I don't mind going to work. Like, I teach 2 days a week now, and I like going to work, but it's 2 days a week. I don't think I'd like to do that, 5 days a week. My husband works and he goes into the office 2 or 3 days a week, and then he's home. So, like, if you can get the balance, I think it's really good. Also, yeah. I think, commuting is a nightmare, and having to commute 2 hours to work is just not fair on people. Companies as big as Amazon and that, they can afford co-working spaces, they can afford village offices, having smaller kind of, and I think that's probably how work is going to go. You'll probably find that you have these superstructures break down into more kind of smaller structures where people can access the company, because it is important also to have those human interactions, to have that kind of feeling of being in a space. But in terms of returning to work, it's good for, I think, anybody who's thinking about getting into work again, is to really know that. That's a huge part of it. And I think that's part of the checklist. Is the first thing I would say is in a checklist of getting to a point when you're going back to work, is really knowing your own values. That's the first thing. What do you value now that maybe has changed since before you had children, or that time out of work? How has your value changed? Like, for example, that 2 hours that you'd be commuting, could you be walking your dog? What could you be doing if you weren't, what do you value in your life? And I think that's a really important thing. Also, do you want a job
huge.
That you can...
Yeah, and you don't want to learn that when you go into work. You don't want to then discover, hang on, these things are important, and now I have to figure out how to get out of here and go somewhere else or change things around. Like, if you can, and I think everybody knows what is valuable to them. And what I find with women a lot is that they're less comfortable advocating for those values, or they're less comfortable admitting that what it is that's important to them is family, or it is being able to put the kids to bed, or it is stuff like that, or walking their dog, because somehow that's devalued on the scale of things socially anyway when you talk about workforces, especially in things like sales and stuff like that. But the reality is at least most men that I know like to be home to put the kids to bed too, but they just don't get asked about it or put under pressure about it as much.
They just get promoted because they have more children. But I think also, but it's also, Jennifer, the value thing, and this is, it's also important to know that, because it becomes a huge strength in looking for a job. If you're going from a point of value, you're actually going from a point of authentic strength. So if you're able to go from that point when you're actually meeting with people and you understand that about yourself, you come across a lot stronger as candidate, because you come across like you have a foundation that's really solid. And that's something that you have to put in first, I think. You have to put that new foundation into yourself. And you have to decide, what are my values now comparative to how they were when I was a singleton, let's say. And when you have that value in you and you're thinking about going back to work, the next thing is to really think about, well, what is it that I want to be known for, or I want to do, or what do I want to progress in my life? You might want to be creative, but you don't have to work as like, a graphic designer in that. You can also be creative and work in product development or in innovation or in any kind of thing. So, but do you want to be where you're collaborating and where you're kind of hitting off other people and sparking ideas? Or do you want to be the person that like just chews the data, scrubs the data, organizes the data? Because I know some people really, really enjoy that side of it. And knowing what you're going to enjoy spending time at is going to really help you narrow down those roles. And also your values, if you know that you want, if you value like being in part of a team and travel and new experiences, that'll give you kind of an idea if you want to be more on site, or if you value being at home with your family, you might decide then actually maybe more kind of back end roles suit me better than, kind of project management roles where sometimes you have to go on site to meet the clients a lot more. So these kind of things become very important. And then I think once you know kind of what your values are and what you want to be doing in your time, because at the end of the day, you're going to be spending a lot of time at this job, which isn't time with your kids, which isn't time with your friends. It's a new time.
Yeah.
And then I think you have to decide what you need financially. That's really important. You have to look after your financial education. Now, we are so fortunate in our program. We have a company called Smart Purse. Olga Miller, she's amazing. She gives them a whole financial education to the participants on the program. And there's actually an app as well that goes
so
with
important.
that. It is so important. And it's not something that people really think is important, but you have to also take into account the time you're not working, you haven't been contributing to a pension, essentially. Excuse me. So you might need to kind of recoup a little bit of that pension. So you might have to actually think about, okay, I could take this role, which would be probably okay paid and very nice, but maybe I need to push myself and actually go for a higher role, which is more competitive, which means you might need to kind of up your game a little bit. But you have to think about these things because, again, it's like you're saying, you don't want to be in the job and, between the taxes and the childcare and everything, you're not getting anything out of it for yourself. So financially aware of what you need is really, really important. And I would say do that over 5 years. So don't need what you're going to earn initially is probably not going to be what you're earning in 5 years. But how can you get to a point in 5 years where you can really start to make up that difference, or you can start to really make a new kind of a contribution to your pension? And that's an important part of returning to work, is the financial aspects of it, because that's a balancing act, because you do have other costs. If you have young children, if you've got, like, for example, if you're working on site, you've to invest in clothes and lunches and travel. These are all considerations. And it's not a bad thing to set up a little kind of a spreadsheet and tally these things up and just look at them and say, okay, these are my values. This is what I want my time. And this is the financial, and kind of do a sort of a checklist on those things. And that can really help you to decide about the kind of jobs. And then I think also going to things that you wouldn't normally go to. Like, for example, like I was saying, I ended up kind of doing a lot of work in innovation-y kind of led stuff. That wasn't my background or my expectation at all, but I really kind of grew in that space, So you'll be surprised where you'll grow. There's different kind of soil. So I think you have to take a few risks. You have to step out of your comfort zone and try things, and also trying things like that you might normally do. For example, if you're a very techy person, maybe try more things like public speaking or something like an improv comedy. Everybody's talking about improv comedy these days. I don't know. Everybody seems to do improv comedy classes, so go do it.
I think improv is probably one of the best skills as well. If you work in something like sales or support or leadership even.
Yeah.
Because being able to think fast, and maybe not the comedy side of it in those cases, but being able to think fast and react fast and do it confidently in those kind of areas is massive, like absolutely massive.
And it's also with it, it's the offer, you know, in improv, you have the verbal offer of, yes, let's, they say, you know, let's all go to the shop. Oh, yes. And let's take dad's car. Oh, yes. Let's take the wheels off or something. I don't know. So building an idea and accepting an idea, they're really important things for collaborating with people, is not saying no to idea, not stopping the creativity, you know. So in terms of like trying these things out for yourself, to help yourself to surprise yourself. And I think it's in those moments where we surprise ourselves, we start to grow, you know, that we go, oh, I didn't know I could do that. Or
capable of new things.
Yeah. Or somebody who you might think is quite dry, you get them up telling a story and everybody's, you know, rolling around laughing because they're just so funny. And it's just that this person isn't an extrovert, they're an introvert. So, you know, I think we have this myth that there's an introvert and an extrovert. I think there's times when everybody's an introvert and there's times when everybody's an extrovert. And sometimes actually the most shy people can be very good in front of a microphone. So have you really kind of explored this side of yourself? Have you explored, you know, your other counter kind of self? Because maybe the person that you were before you had a baby, maybe the bit that's left, the little bit that you have remaining, maybe that's the bit that you didn't really develop the last time, you know, or something.
Yeah, you weren't finished. Like,
or you just never kind of got around to it because, you know, we only have one lifetime, so on and so forth. So I think in terms of, you know, there's plenty of programs in Ireland. There's a lot of returnship type style programs. There's reskilling programs, and, you know, enterprise boards have them. And, you know, there's I think Work Equal is one that I saw recently in Ireland. And they're really worthwhile checking out and looking into if you do think you want to get back to work. And I think also if you want to get back to work, you know, it's a process. It's not something that you can, I thought it would take 3 months, but it's a big process. It took me kind of 18 months, actually, if I'm being really honest, before I really found a job that worked with everything I wanted to do and what I wanted to build on. And, you know, I'm really lucky now that I'm exactly where I want to be for the first time in a long time. And I thank myself, and I know this sounds, I wake up and I feel blessed. I mean, I really do wake up every morning and, you know, feel, my God, like, you know, I survived, because the other direction I was going in wasn't at all pretty.
It was good.
So I think it's about being patient with yourself, about being, you know, I don't like to say be positive and all this stuff, because I think, you know, there's so much that sort of positivity talk, but I really do think patience is the word. Patience and accepting. And, you know, we're human and we're not perfect, but it's about kind of getting to a point where you can kind of focus in on yourself and really decide what it is that you want. And the more you do that, I find, and this is really what I've discovered, the more you're committed to you, the easier and the more likely it is that you're going to get a position that fits you. So that's kind of bringing them back to work.
I love that. And it's bringing me almost up to the end, but I do have one more question, which I think might tidy it up as such, which is around we get asked a lot. Well, I get asked a lot, and I know women, certainly older women, will get asked as well about work-life balance. Like, how do you build a career and make that work-life balance work whilst also spending time with your children and things like that? And now that you've come back, and I know you've gone back, you said 2 days a week, isn't it?
Yes.
So how do you balance it now, say, particularly even on those 2 days, but how do you balance it overall?
Well, I don't think there's such a thing as work-life balance. I think there's work-life chaos. Maybe it's a bit different when the kids get older, but mine are still very young. So it's futile for me to plan. And, you know, I mean, I have my schedule. We have our routine.
Yeah.
I think rhythm is the try and keep in the rhythm. So when it comes to myself, like, for example, you know, if I don't do the walk every day, or if I don't do something, like if I have a day where I eat way too much chocolate, I've gotten much better at just forgiving that mistake or whatever, and just starting again the next day. Or if I do something and I'm not happy about how I did it, I'm much better now at just letting go of things. And I think that's the balance, is letting go of what's the mistakes quickly, learning and quickly moving on, rather than, you know, trying to meet this ideal, because you can't. It's simple.
No.
And even without kids, I mean, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So balance is a funny one. I mean, I'm a Libra, so I'm always looking for balance. But I wonder, is it the energy of pursuit rather than actually ever achieving it? Is it that sort of sense that I won't give up to try, rather than it doesn't really matter if I ever do? It's kind of like, you know, there's no such thing as perfection. You know, you can only ever strive for these things. Practical things, though, I think, is definitely having a vision of yourself, of how you want to be. Now, you can have a vision board, that's one thing, but I mean, I always say have a picture of what you want. You know, like, how do you see yourself? And I think one little clean image for me is always the best. And my happy image is always just kind of thinking about the summer at the beach with the kids. That's what I'm working for at the moment. You know, I mean, there'll be other things I'll work towards, and just knowing, having things to look forward to, I think that's huge. And even if it's just going to get your nails done or whatever it is, always have something to look forward to. I think that's an important thing, so that when you do feel a bit blue or you feel a bit kind of frustrated, just look at your calendar and you'll find something nice that's coming along the line and go, okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
You know?
To look forward to.
And simple things, keep things very simple. But I think as well, in terms of, you know, trying to establish a kind of a wellness routine or looking after yourself, even though I say it's work life chaos. I mean, if you can give yourself something every day, you know, if it's something like an indulgence or a kind of a care, it doesn't have to be the same thing every day. Like, it could be a full body stretch one day. It could be, I don't know, reading a book the next day, or it could be journaling. Try and give yourself a space where you can just be yourself in your own private world. And I think that's something that I definitely, you would know this as well, having trained up through theatre, those abilities to step out of things for a little while and just be with yourself, your own living experience. I think that's a really big factor to how you perform in the rest of the day and the week, so on.
Absolutely. Very insightful. It's too easy to be 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years down the line and forget who you are because you didn't give yourself any time for something like that. I think it's absolutely vital.
Yes,
for people
absolutely
to do.
it is. Just a little bit of space in your day to be really outside of it all. It's a good thing to do.
Lovely. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you very much. It was lovely talking to you, Jennifer.